Oh, welcome back. Right now, we want to take you live out to the White House, where our very own Emerald Robinson has the latest on Steve Bannon's crusade as Senate Leader Mitch McConnell defends his relationship with the president. Hey there, Emerald.
Hi, Rachel. Like you just said a few minutes ago, Mitch McConnell's out there on the Sunday circuit, clearly defending himself against this current attack by Steve Bannon. Mitch McConnell clearly aligning himself with the president, talking about the president in a way that we haven't heard before, praising his moves unrelated to legislation and also his appointments to federal appointments. But interestingly, he also did fire back at Bannon, saying that he and others like him specialize in recruiting would-be loser candidates in a general election. He also said that, he's not on the ticket next time, and so this is really not about him, that it's irrelevant. This coming after Steve Bannon continued his crusade in front of the California GOP this Friday, and also a Hill report that shows that nearly 24 senatorial candidates would not commit to supporting the now Senate Majority Leader if they were elected. Now, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's former Chief of Staff, Josh Holmes, also came out against Bannon this week, swinging, saying that he has no movement, that he's just doing a vanity project, and that there's really nothing that he's causing or affecting change. And Bannon, of course, firing back on that this Friday, saying, look at Alabama. Look at what has happened since that primary in Alabama where Roy Moore took the candidacy over Senator Luther Strange. He said, look at what's happening in Washington. They have now decertified the Iran deal. They're no longer making payments to Obamacare subsidies, and they have finally passed a budget and moving on to tax reform. He says that he thinks that's interesting timing, suggesting that Moore's win in Alabama is getting the establishment going and also relaying to President Trump of reminding him what the voters wanted and what they voted for him on. And in addition to that, McConnell saying that, tax reform is really important, really driving home their desire to pass a complete tax reform package because, Rachel, McConnell's future most likely hinges on a tax reform success. Rachel?
Well, Emerald, let's talk a little bit more about Bannon. Where does, he still keeps in touch with the president and has actually said he's helping him from the outside. What is the feeling there in D.C. in general toward Bannon and his mission against the GOP establishment?
Rachel, that's a really good point. When Bannon left the White House, he said that he could do more from the outside than inside, a point that was also reiterated by Sebastian Gorka once he left the White House. Now, I actually did speak with Mr. Bannon personally on Thursday night. He says that he does still have a very strong relationship with the president, and although they were on opposite sides of the football in the Alabama primary, he's still very much behind the president and what he's doing, and he says that he's on the ground in a grassroots effort, rallying troops on the ground to get a Congress that will support the president's agenda going forward. Now, on another interesting note, we hear a lot about winning from Bannon. He's always talking about winning begets winning, victory begets victory. But Ken Cuccinelli, the former Attorney General for Virginia, who is also aligned with Bannon, says it's not about winning all the time. It's about batting .400, because if they can win sometimes, they can make movement and changes within the establishment GOP that might affect change in promoting the president's agenda. So, and as exemplified in what Bannon was saying the other night, in getting certain things like the Iran deal decertified and some movement on health care, whereas the Congress had failed on a full repeal. So, Bannon does. It looks like he is affecting change in Congress, and we do see a fire lit under this Congress to really pass tax reform. So it seems like he does have the president's ear. It does seem like he's working for the president's agenda. How much change he's affecting, it really is who you ask as to how much it's working. Rachel?
And Emerald, you just mentioned winning. It was a big victory in terms of the budget for the Senate and the GOP. Now either the House must pass the Senate's version or both chambers must appoint a conference committee to develop a compromise. Any thoughts on what direction they may head?
Well, as far as the budget goes, so on Friday, Freedom Caucus members had a conference call, and after which Chairman Mark Meadows said that he really feels like they're going to support this budget that came from the Senate without going to conference so that they can fast-track tax reform. Because, as you know, Rachel, they're running out of legislative days. They're working on a very quick timeline here. That continuing resolution runs out on December 8th, and then, you know, they really have, if they work up to the very end of the year, they have a December 23rd deadline to pass tax reform by the end of the year like the president wants. So the timeline we're looking at, the ambitious one, is that it passes, this budget passes, it doesn't have to go to conference. Then they can schedule a vote by mid-November in the House for tax reform and pass it on to the Senate to meet that end of year deadline. It is ambitious, but again, it's very important for this Congress looking into the 2018 midterms to get this done. Rachel?
Thanks so much, Emerald, for that live report out in D.C.